Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm wearing a cowboy hat because why not? This is going to be episode number 3 in the video series for whatever I researched that night. Today I'm taking a break from like this whole U.S. East Coast states series, where quick recap: we had Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Capital of Maine is Augusta. Capital of New Hampshire is I should definitely know this. Anyways, the the capital of Vermont is Multiplier. No, Montpelier. That's what it is. Montpelier. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I should totally know New Hampshire's capital. I know that the largest city is Manchester, and that the capital is Concord. Whatever, I forgot. Anyways, today we're going to be covering a science topic. So, kind of don't really know anything about biology, or at least forgot all of the school teachings about biology. So today I kind of looked into some more scientific topics about the body. So we're going to be covering some stuff about temperature, and now I'm looking a little bit at my notes, food cravings, and blood cells, kind of basic stuff. Getting right along with it. So as humans, we normally have to have an internal core temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, and any type of fluctuation, even through a few degrees, can kill us. Our blood cells and proteins will just die in our body. You may be asking, why do we have to live at a specific core temperature? And before getting into that, I want to first cover what happens when we do regulate, or when our body regulates because our temperatures are too high or too low. So firstly, if your body temperature is too high, not looking at like a fever, but more like if you're doing exercise and you're generating a lot of heat inside of your internal core temperature, our blood vessels will tend to expand, especially towards the skin, which allows the blood to reach more of surface area of the skin and allows for more heat to be dissipated from the core of the veins and the core of your body and more out to the skin, which then touches the exterior environment and allows for the blood to cool down. Simultaneously, you also have the sweating of the body, which also happens when the nervous system tells your body you need to regulate more sweat, and sweat evaporates, which then in that process also cools down the body. And then the other byproduct is when you're too cold, your blood vessels will shrink so that more of the temperature is maintained within the blood vessels or within the core part of your body, allowing less of the heat to be dissipated to the exterior or environment. And you also start to shiver, so you get really, really cold. You start to shiver, which also creates vibrations and allows your body to heat up. So those are kind of like the two things that happens when we're too cold or it's too warm. One reason why this happens or what studies have shown why we have an internal core temperature of 37 degrees. So if we look at a comparison between ectotherms and endotherms, so ectotherms are cold-blooded creatures like lizards or snakes. They require energy or heat to come from exterior or external factors, so like the sun or any type of warm thing. And they are much more likely to catch diseases or to catch fungi. And that's the core reason why we have, or why scientists believe we have a core temperature of 37 degrees. It's because at that temperature, only a few hundred funguses can survive, as I guess the temperature increases, specific funguses can't live. So at 30 degrees Celsius, around 100,000, I think, funguses can survive, and that's the temperature that normally ectotherms live at. And then as you increase by a single degree, you lose 6% of all of the other possible funguses that can technically survive at that temperature. So we basically have a lot less, or we're a lot less susceptible to being attacked by specific funguses. But then there's also a fine balance between having too much heat, so our body being too hot, because heating your body takes up a lot of energy, and so that also requires more food, more time spent sleeping and recouping. So scientists did a study between the benefit and optimization between being hot enough to avoid funguses and being cold enough to where you're not taking up too much energy, and they found the sweet spot was 36.7 degrees Celsius on the dot. Moving on, quick topic: can you get too much sleep? Absolutely. There was studies done for all kinds of like heart diseases, depression. They were all linked to either getting too little sleep or too much sleep, and so that's in between 7 to 9 hours is optimal. Anything above is too much, and everything below is, well, obviously too little. Moving on to food cravings. So this is a cool topic. So what is a food craving? Well, firstly, what is just being hungry? So being hungry is your body telling you that you are lacking a supply of calories. So you're out of any type of calorie. And so with that comes, so once your stomach is empty, your blood sugar levels will also drop. Quick detour and deep dive into blood sugar. So what is blood sugar and how do we get it? So when we eat carbohydrates, our small intestine and our liver turn carbohydrates into sugar, or they turn it into glucose, mostly through the small intestine. And that glucose then enters into our bloodstream. And glucose is very important because glucose is the energy fueling our entire body, anywhere from our muscles to our brains. So it fuels all the cells within our body. So that's why it's always important, why people are always talking about blood sugar. And then kind of what, diabetes is where, or kind of the pancreas is, develops insulin, which regulates the blood sugar in our body. So that's kind of how things connect together. But going back to blood sugar, I talked about this. So when we're low on calories, going back to the main topics of what is being hungry. So when we're low on calories, our body starts to produce something called ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and it gets released into your hypothalamus. And your hypothalamus is a part of your brain, which is basically the control center of everything in your brain. It regulates your your nervous system, and your endocrine, which is a system of glands in your body which either release or secrete specific hormones. I don't know everything about it, but that's the basics. But hypothalamus is like the control center of everything. It controls your hunger, your thirst, your mood, your core or your temperature of your body, and your sleep cycle. So basically everything. And it makes sure that your body is constantly staying in a state of homeostasis. So our hypothalamus receives some form of ghrelin, and then we eat some food, and then the ghrelin depletes. But sometimes people still have like cravings for specific foods, and that could be one of two things. The first one is you could lack a specific nutrient. So if you're lacking in sodium, you might want to eat some salty things like potato chips or whatever else is salty, like a nice saltine cracker. And then the second reason is if you have specific food craving, it could just be because you have some type of stress or mood or psychological thing going on. Because when you eat food, especially like sweet foods or like chocolates or any kind of cake, I don't know exactly what happens in your body, but you just get like a rush of whatever hormone or substance. Maybe it's dopamine, maybe it's serotonin, but you get a lot of good stuff and a good feeling, and so your body remembers that, or you're psychologically you're stressed out, so you need something to kind of up your mood a little bit. So that is the second reason. So food cravings, ghrelin produced in your hypothalamus, which then tells you to eat food. That's the whole topic. Finally, we're going to be looking at the appendix. So I don't have my appendix. I got it removed. I had an appendicitis on New Year's Day, actually, which kind of sucked. We were going to go to like the Napa area with my family, but had to cancel it. I was the party pooper, of course, but luckily didn't erupt. But going back, sidetracked, sorry. The appendix is kind of reading off my notes. The appendix has evolved in mammals 29 times, so this shows that there has to be some kind of evolutionary advantage to having your appendix, and we all still have, or many mammals still have their appendix, so there has to be some type of formal advantage. Looking specifically at what's in the appendix, so one thing that's in the appendix it contains a lot of T, B, and natural killer cells. So B and T cells are the, what was the name? They're the main two types of lymphocytes. So lymphocytes are white blood cells, and white blood cells are essentially like the fighting house of your body, where they attack and are regulated by the immune system. So they fight any type of disease. So B cells are specifically good at fighting pathogens, which is any type of bacteria, virus, or other microbiome that can turn into some type of disease if there's too much of it, and then forces your body to spend a significant amount of energy and production of white blood cells to go fight that disease. So that's why you kind of feel weak. And then there's the T cells. The T cells are the actual fighters for any type of active, or they just kill the cells who are currently being attacked or sick. So B cells fighting pathogens, and T cells killing sick cells. But then going back to the appendix, why it's useful, its placement right next to the colon. Researchers think that it might be able to dish out emergency good gut bacteria. So if you ever have diarrhea, I guess it helps replenish your gut bacteria. And yeah, that's kind of it. There was one study that showed that there was a specific type of disease that if people got it and they didn't have an appendix, they were 2 times as likely to develop a severe infection, as if compared to people who did have their appendix. But other than that, there's no like scientific reason for it, and all it does is kind of just like expand and erupt, and it's kind of dangerous. But there's no like scientific reason to remove it, so because that's like just a unnecessary dangerous surgery. So that's kind of it. Hope we learned a few interesting things. I think most important were learning about the blood vessels, the expansion and contraction, and why they do that. Secondly, we learned about food cravings and understanding what the hypothalamus does, what ghrelin does, and then finally what the appendix is. So learning about, how the appendix has some BT and killer immune cells. Perfect. Great recap. Thank you again for watching. If you are watching, this is more for myself. I know I say this every time, but hope this helps anyone curious. Bye now.